Grace, and peace. Kingdom people, where you at today? Where you at? Where you at? Where you at? Where you at? What's good? What's going on, people of God? People of the Most High? What's the deal? For some of you, you've been following the page, and I've been dealing with addressing the issue of hurt and dealing with hurt in the body, hurt in relationships, dealing with pain and heartache, and I've been scribing on that a little bit, talking about that, addressing that from different angles. Grace Queen, what's going on with you? Blessings. But what I want to talk about really is the purpose for addressing it. The purpose for addressing hurt. It comes from a ministry of healing. It comes from the ministry to want to mend, to make things whole. That's good. All is good. It comes from the place of wanting to see things made whole. And that's important because many people who address things like to address things because they want to control something. They have controlling spirits. And so if something is not looking the way they want them to look, if something is not in the pattern or form that they want it to be in, then they feel like they have been given the right to speak to it, to address it, to deal with it. But it's not always from a ministry of healing. See, our motivation for wanting to set things in order, set things straight, it should not be from a spirit of manipulation or a spirit of control, power tripping, but it should be from the desire to be like Yah, to make things whole. The ministry of healing is a ministry of correcting bones, of realigning things, of reconciling things, bringing things back to a right place. But it comes from love. It comes from the desire to bring joy, a desire to bring peace, to put an end to disorder and dis-ease, and to bring about order. Not just so it can be orderly because it fits what we want it to do, but so that the people could be blessed, so that the relationships could be right, so that the individual could be at peace with Yah and with themselves. And so if we don't have a ministry of healing, if we don't have a ministry that desires to make people whole, then we shouldn't be trying to correct or align anything. If we don't have a desire to see people walk in gladness and walk in joy, then that disqualifies us from having a right to speak to somebody else's issues, because what is the purpose? Now you might say, well, I have a jurisdiction. Well, if it's in your jurisdiction, then you have a responsibility for that. But sometimes we address things that have nothing to do with us directly just because we don't like it, or because, it gets on our nerves, as we say. But it has nothing to do with our direct influence, our direct assignment, or our direct place in Yah. So you ask the question, what is it in you that would make you want to correct somebody else, make you want to check somebody else, if you're not checking yourself to the same degree? And we know the scripture that would come after that, talking about the log, talking about the beam in your eye. But not just that. If you look at the ministry of Yeshua, you saw that he went out throughout the land doing good, casting out demons, laying hands on the sick, bringing about healing, doing miracles to bless people, and joy was the result of his ministry. And so we can look at the fruit of our ministry is when you try to correct something or address something, does it result in joy? Does it result in someone being thankful and thanking Yah for you helping them, or you opening their eyes to see something, or them walking in a greater level of glory? Or do they leave from that experience only feeling condemned? Do they leave from that experience only feeling like they were checked, like somebody put them in their place? Or do they leave from the experience feeling uplifted, feeling liberated, feeling like a load was lifted, a weight was lifted off of them? What is the motivation for us addressing somebody else's hurt? That's the question I'm asking. What is our motivation? Because many of us can save our ministry of condemnation and save our ministry of critique, criticism, our ministry of pointing out everything somebody else is not doing. We have to first have a heart of compassion and a desire to see people walk in gladness and walk in joy. This should be our motivation for us addressing other people. To be our motivation for wanting to fix something else in somebody else is because I want you to be, I want your joy to be full. I want you to be complete in him. I don't want you to lack anything. I don't want you to leave from that experience or to leave from this place not having the fullness of what he has for you. So my motivation for addressing it is not because I want to tear you down. It's not because there's something else that I see that's not right, but it's because I see more glory in you that needs to come out. And because I know that if you walk in that level of glory, you will be more fulfilled as a result of it. My desire is for you to be whole. My desire. But then, and even in that, we can't desire for somebody to be whole more than they desire it for themselves. So sometimes we have to learn how to walk in long suffering. In other words, we have to suffer the injury of waiting until they're ready to be made whole. And sometimes it pains us to see someone else walking beneath their privilege, walking underneath their purpose. But if you try to force it out of Yah's timing, then what happens is you frustrate the plans of Yah. They have to come to the revelation at some point for themselves. Yes, we are a light. Yes, we preach righteousness. Yes, we sow seeds, but we can't coerce people into living right. And we can't coerce people into having the best things in life if they don't want to have it for themselves. We can't do it. If they don't want it for themselves, we can't make it for them. We can't make them have it. Let me turn this light on real quick. Peace, Queen, what's going on? Say that's good, huh? It's true. It's true. We can't do that. We can't do that. And then another thing too, a lot of times the reason why he shows us errors, faults, disorders, wrong things in other people is because he was trying to show us things about ourselves. And a lot of times we don't look at ourselves, so he shows us ourselves by looking at somebody else. You say interrupting the full manifestations that God has planned by prematurely interfering. That's real. That's real. That's real. We need to do more praying. You know, these days we feel like we have to go and talk to everybody about everything. We need to do more praying so that we can get a strategy, so that we can get a word of wisdom, so we can have wise counsel, so that we don't just be Mr. Obvious or Mrs. Obvious telling somebody something they know they already know. Just the fact that we say that we know it and we see it. Okay, you see it, I see it. So what? What's the wisdom? What's the strategy? What's the way of escape? What's the plan of action? Are you just trying to tell me something because you want me to know you see something? So this is why he doesn't open up discernment more in people's lives, because he can't trust them to do the right thing with it. Because a lot of times when we get a little glimpse of something in the spirit, we feel like it's our job to go and put somebody in their place as soon as we hear something or see something. So that's why it's very important for us to know to have a prayer life. Do more praying for people than trying to address people. And I'm talking to prophets too, because prophets feel like because they have the role, because they are prophets, they have the license to speak to everything. No, even watchmen. Now, if he says, hey, the sword is coming, and he gives us the thing to sound the alarm, then we can do that. But we still need to do it in a spirit to want them to be saved and rescued. We want them to take heed to the warning, but some people rejoice in judgment. Some people rejoice in the downfall. Some people rejoice in pain. And so they use the Bible. Really is they enter into witchcraft because they use the Bible to find things so they can pronounce curses upon people. These are religious people. They're not doing seances, but they're finding the worst judgments in scriptures to apply to people, instead of praying that he turn it for their good. Instead of praying for our enemies, or instead of praying for them to find a way out, or for them to come into the light, for them to walk in truth, that before they die, that they will come to know who he is, that they will serve him, that they will love him, that even though they're enemies of the faith now, or even though they're going a wrong direction, that he's going to make the crooked ways straight. See, my question is, what's our motivation for wanting to be his mouthpieces? What's our motivation for wanting to be ministers? So that we can tell somebody something. So we can let somebody know that we know something. Or is it so that we can see people made whole, see people healed, see people who had a countenance that was sad, who were burdened in their soul, and see it uplifted? Here's a tendency. I want to tell you something about prophets. Me training prophets for many years, I've learned to study them, and I know some things. I'm going to tell you something about prophetic people. Sometimes prophetic people are not satisfied. So let's just say if everybody is happy, if everybody is walking in joy, then they're going to have the burden of the Lord, and they're going to walk in lamentation. So they're going to come in with a spirit of, I'm talking about novice prophets. They're going to come in with a spirit of heaviness and say, you think everything's fine, but the Lord is not pleased, right? But then when everybody is sad and repenting and crying out, then they want to say, y'all should have the joy of the Lord. The prophet is never satisfied. The young prophet, the novice prophet, is never satisfied with what the majority is doing. So they want to have the opposite feeling, because they always want to be in a place where they can tell the crowd or tell the people to turn and do something else. And that's novice. But as we grow in the Lord, as we grow up, we move away from the need to feel like we always have to turn the people from a different place than where they are, because sometimes people are right where they need to be. Sometimes if they're lamenting, they need to lament, and they need to experience that godly sorrow that brings about repentance. Sometimes when people are full of joy and they're joyous, they need to remain in that place of joy. So novice prophets always want to go in because most novice prophets deal with a controlling spirit that they need to get delivered from. They want to control the crowd. They want to control the atmosphere instead of helping navigate and maneuver or operate in the atmosphere. A lot of novice trainee prophets, just budding prophets, just now learning how to flow in the spirit, like to control what's going on. And so how does that link up to dealing with hurt? So they feel like if they get a glimpse of somebody hurting, they have to control the situation by addressing the hurt. But a lot of times they don't have all the information needed to address it properly. And that's the worst thing you can do, is try to do surgery on somebody. You don't have all the surgical tools. You don't have all the surgical skills, yet you're trying to address a deep pain, a deep issue, uproot something that you don't even know what's really going on. This is why prophets need to be trained by apostles, because apostles, mature apostles, have the gift and have the mantle of wisdom on their life so that they could temper the prophet and train them how to not just sense in the spirit, but how to operate with wisdom, how to operate with truth, so that you won't destroy something that you should be building. Because if you let a novice prophet go without any guidance, that person can be a menace. They'll destroy based on any kind of inkling or anything they sense in the spirit. They could destroy a whole house. Because if they detach from from apostolic wisdom, then this is the default. This is them operating in the negatives of their ministry. Because there are times when a prophet is called to destroy institutions, to destroy dead things and dead works, but they have to be trained and mature so that they won't do that the wrong way. But a ministry of healing is a ministry, is a prophetic ministry, is a mature apostolic ministry. It's the ministry that wants to see things made whole again, integrated, fully integrated. One of the reasons why we call Yahweh holy is because he's fully integrated with himself, lacking nothing, needing nothing on the outside to exist. He's self-sufficient. So he is whole. He is holy. He is self-sufficient. He is lacking nothing. So a person that is in lack or who has a dis-ease or a disorder, they need to be brought into wholeness. But in order to be brought into wholeness and fullness, there has to be a spirit of love or a spirit of compassion, a spirit that is like Yah, to bring them back to a right place. What brings us to a right place, back to wholeness? One thing is truth. One thing is truth. So when we minister to somebody's hurt, we have to be real enough to tell them the truth. This is what's going on. The truth is not my opinion. And I hope for anyone who's listening here, you apply these principles when you're addressing somebody. The truth is not your opinion about facts that you have heard or facts even that person is telling you. The truth is what the Most High says concerning that person and concerning the situation. It's not my opinion about it. It's not whether I like it or whether I'm disgusted by it or whether it upsets me or it makes me feel uncomfortable. Truth has nothing to do with that. The truth is, this is what he says about the situation. So we tell them the truth. We give them the truth. Christ says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. So it's not opinions. It's not just random facts. It's truth. But it's also long suffering and patience. And so while I'm communicating these truths, we understand if somebody is hurting, they're not going to get the truth right away. You ever got frustrated with somebody because you told them something they needed to do to change, but they didn't change and move at the time or at the speed that you wanted them to? Grace, how you doing? Oh, peace, Queen. Evangelist, what's going on? Yeah, so the rate and speed at which we would want somebody to change, if it doesn't happen at the speed we want, then we begin to talk against what we prophesied over them. So say the Lord used us to tell somebody, you're going to come out of this. You're going to walk in greater power, and the blinders are going to come off your eyes. You're going to see better. And then you see them next week doing the opposite of what you prophesied or what you spoke over them. Now, if you lack patience, you'll then begin to say, see, that person is a knucklehead. They don't want to live right. And then you begin to speak opposite of what you just now spoke over their life. But in order to be a healer, in order to walk in healing, we have to have a spirit of long suffering, a spirit of patience, a spirit of endurance, and a spirit that maintains hope, that we maintain the expectation that we will see the salvation of the Lord in their life, in the land of the living. Right? So don't address it if you're not trying to heal it, unless you feel like it's time to curse it. But make sure it's time to curse it. Because Paul even talked about not judging a thing before it's time. Make sure it's really time to curse it, because you would be better off not saying anything if you don't know how to address it. If you're not coming to it to heal it and you feel like it's condemned and it's done, then just make sure you're right on that. Because we have damaged a lot of people's lives being overly critical, being impatient, and we begin to speak the cursing over them instead of the blessing, just because we got tired of dealing with the person. Just because, and we feel like because they didn't do what God wanted them to do, we get personally offended because they didn't receive our word. But if that person is in bondage and that person is in a stronghold, that person is fighting for their faith, or if they're in a state of rebellion, whatever the case may be, we have to determine who are we in the situation. Are we going to be the light? Are we going to be the agents of hope? Are we going to be the people who would stand in the gap, stand in the breach until a change comes? Or are we going to be their critics? Are we going to be the witnesses of their failure? Are we going to be the accusers of the brethren? That's the question. That's the question. But I'm about to get out of here. I just want to leave you with this. And this is recapping what I already said. And that is, we have to address hurt from a place of healing. We need to come from a place of wholeness to address lack. You don't come in poverty trying to help somebody who is impoverished. You come from a place of fullness and abundance to address their lack. You don't come from a place of sadness and depression trying to cheer up somebody in depression, cheering them up by relating to their sadness and depression. No, you come from a place of joy and gladness to address their depression or their sadness. What is my point? My point is, if we're going to address somebody's hurt, somebody's pain, someone's heartache, we need to come from a place of healing ourselves, wholeness, completeness. Let me bring my completeness and wholeness to your hurt. Let me bring my joy and my peace to your sadness and grief. And if we go from that place, then even if it takes a little while to see the manifestation, we will have the spirit of long suffering, endurance, and joy to see them through. And even if you never see it with your natural eyes, you see it in the spirit. So we keep on praying and keep on hoping and keep on believing that the change will come in their life. So let's walk in that. Address the hurt with healing. Shalom, shalom. Grace and peace. I'll talk to you soon.